All right. So are you ready to dive into some serious global power dynamics with me today?
Always.
Okay, cool. So we're going to be breaking down President Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping's last meeting
Hmm.
of Biden's presidency. It was just a few days ago on November 16th at the APEC conference in Peru. And this wasn't just a, like normal diplomatic handshake, how are you? This was their final face-to-face before the U.S. transitions over to a new administration.
Right.
And they talked about some really, really big and important stuff, AI, fentanyl, Taiwan. They even touched on North Korean troops fighting in Ukraine. It's a lot.
Yeah, you're right. The timing of this meeting, I mean, just days after the U.S. election,
Right.
it really adds another layer, like a whole other layer of intrigue to it.
Hmm.
The U.S. China relationship, it's kind of like the tectonic plates of global politics, right?
Yeah.
Any shift and boom, you get major tremors all over the world. And with a new U.S. president about to kind of like step onto that world stage,
Yeah.
understanding what happened in this meeting is crucial.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so picture this, right? Cameras are flashing everywhere.
Okay.
Biden and Xi shake hands, and like out of nowhere, a reporter just throws out this question, like, how will you discuss North Korea?
Oh, wow.
And Biden just, like, without missing a beat, just says, peacefully? So what do you make of that?
It's a carefully chosen word, that's for sure.
It is.
Like, on the surface, it just seems like a straightforward, simple answer. But when you think about the history of U.S. China relations
Yeah.
and all the tension surrounding North Korea, peacefully takes on a whole new meaning.
Uh-huh.
Is it like a genuine desire for diplomacy? Is it a subtle signal to other players in the region? Or is it maybe both?
Right, right. Yeah, that's a good point. It definitely leaves us with more questions than answers. And speaking of navigating tricky waters,
Yeah.
she didn't exactly shy away from the big elephant in the room, did he? The
Oh.
incoming Trump administration. He stated that China is ready to work with the new U.S. leadership and wants to focus on communication, cooperation, and managing differences.
Hmm.
Given Trump's, past comments about China, this seems surprising.
Yeah, it is surprising, but maybe, maybe also strategic.
Yeah.
Like, remember, he has this reputation, right, for being a very calculated, pragmatic leader.
Right.
So this statement, it could be a way of, like, extending an olive branch,
Yeah.
signaling that, hey, China is open to kind of a reset,
Mm-hmm.
or at least a more predictable relationship.
Yeah.
But of course, actions always speak louder than words.
They do.
We'll have to just wait and see how things really unfold.
Absolutely. And it's interesting. I thought it was interesting that Biden chose to really emphasize the candor, like the directness of their conversations.
Okay.
He stressed how they've always been straightforward with each other, even when they're disagreeing.
Uh-huh.
He even said, this kind of open communication is vital to preventing competition from escalating into actual conflict.
I think that's a crucial point, especially when we're talking about these global superpowers.
Yeah.
Clear communication, even when it involves, those tough conversations, can be a powerful tool
Yeah.
to avoid misunderstandings, manage all those tensions. Think of it like almost like a pressure valve,
Mm.
right? It allows for that release of built-up tension before things, before they get too hot.
It makes sense, yeah. So did they actually find any common ground on specific issues?
They did. One area was on AI safety
Okay.
and the importance of maintaining, human control,
Yeah.
or particularly when it comes to military applications of AI.
Right.
They also talked about joint efforts to combat the fentanyl crisis.
Yeah.
Biden noted, that overdose deaths in the U.S. are finally declining for the first time in a decade.
Wow.
So, that's a bit of good news there.
Yeah, that's a good sign. AI safety, especially in the military context, it's something that is getting a lot of attention lately.
It is.
It's like we're living in a sci-fi movie.
Yep.
Right? Yeah, yeah.
But the potential consequences, they're very, very real. What's your take on the significance of this agreement?
Well, I think it highlights a growing global recognition that we need to be careful
Yeah.
about how we deploy these really powerful technologies.
Yeah.
The agreement, at least on paper, suggests that there's a shared understanding that AI, especially in the hands of the military, needs clear boundaries and oversight.
It sounds like a step in the right direction. But of
Mhm.
course, there were some areas where they didn't exactly see eye to eye, right?
Definitely some points of tension there.
Hmm.
Biden, he voiced deep concern over China's support for Russia's defense industrial base,
Right.
especially now with North Korean troops joining the fight in Ukraine.
Wow. Yeah.
He also brought up the ongoing issues, Taiwan, the detention of American citizens in China. These topics, I mean, the two sides, they remain really far apart on those. It seems like navigating their whole relationship is like walking a tightrope.
Yeah.
You've got these areas where, potential cooperation on the one hand, and then these really thorny, complex issues on the other. I mean, how do you even begin to balance all of that?
It's a delicate dance. That's for sure. And it requires this deep understanding, not only of the specific issues, but also the historical context, the cultural nuances,
Yeah.
and the broader geopolitical landscape. It's about finding those areas of common ground while also acknowledging and managing the inevitable disagreements.
Right, right. Okay, so let's go back to that reporter's question for a sec about the incoming Trump administration.
Okay.
Remember how they both completely sidestepped it, Biden and Xi?
Yeah.
And then what about when they were asked about potential tariffs? Again, just silence. What do you think was behind that?
Well, I mean, their silence speaks volumes, right?
It does. It does.
It could be that they were just hesitant to speculate on hypotheticals,
Yeah.
especially given the unpredictable nature, let's just say, of the incoming administration.
Right.
But it could also, suggest a deliberate strategy to avoid making any premature pronouncements, things that could, box them in or complicate the transition.
It may be a bit of a wait and see approach.
Exactly. And remember, this meeting wasn't happening in a vacuum. It was against this backdrop of really significant global uncertainty.
Right.
You've got the ongoing conflict in Ukraine,
Right.
with all of its geopolitical and economic ripple effects. You've got the rise of these new technologies like AI,
Yeah.
which present, incredible opportunities, but also potential dangers. And then you have this global power dynamic that is constantly shifting,
Right.
with countries like China asserting themselves more and more forcefully on the world stage.
So with all of that in mind, what does this meeting actually tell us about the future of the U.S. China relationship? It seems like they agreed on a few things, disagreed on others, and then just straight up avoided some of the biggest questions. Like, where do we go from here?
I mean, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
On the one hand, the fact that they even met at all, especially under these circumstances, that is a positive sign.
Right.
It suggests a willingness to at least maintain that dialogue, even amidst the disagreements and the agreements on, AI, safety, and counter-narcotics. They show that there are still areas where collaboration is possible.
But on the other hand, we've got these looming unanswered questions and this underlying tension that always seems to be simmering between these two global giants. It feels like we're almost teetering on a geopolitical seesaw,
Yeah.
just waiting to see which way it's going to tip.
That's a great analogy. And I think that sense of uncertainty, that's really what makes this relationship so fascinating and so crucial for all of us to understand. It's a relationship that will undoubtedly shape the 21st century.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no easy answer to how it will evolve.
So for a listener out there who's, trying to make sense of all of this, what are the key takeaways here from this Biden-Xi meeting? What should we all be kind of paying attention to as we move forward?
I think there are a few key things to watch.
Okay.
First, how will the incoming Trump administration actually approach China?
Right, right.
His policies, his rhetoric during his previous term, it was, let's just say, unconventional.
Yeah.
So will we see more of that, or will he try to, chart a new course?
Yeah. That's the big question, isn't it? I mean, will it be confrontation? Will it be cooperation? Or will it be, something kind of in between?
Exactly. And how will China respond to whatever the U.S. does?
Right?
They've been flexing their muscles on the world stage lately.
Yeah, they have.
Both economically and militarily. So, if they perceive the U.S. as hostile, they might take a more aggressive stance. It's a delicate balancing act for both sides.
And let's not forget, I mean, there's also this whole wild card of the war in Ukraine.
I
right?
Absolutely.
I mean, the outcome there, it could have major implications for U.S. China relations. If that conflict escalates, it could pull both of these superpowers into a much more direct confrontation.
Yeah.
And nobody wants that.
Nobody wants that.
No. And then there's the whole issue of these emerging technologies, right?
Right.
Particularly AI.
AI.
I mean, both the US and China They're pouring resources into AI research and development. And this competition, it could become a major source of friction in the years to come.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's a lot to keep track of.
It is.
But it sounds like the main takeaway here is that the U.S. China relationship, I mean, it's complex. It's constantly evolving.
Right.
And it's incredibly important for all of us.
Yeah, I think that's a really good summary. It's a relationship that will define global dynamics for decades to come. And as we've seen in this meeting, it's a relationship that's full of contradictions.
Yeah.
Cooperation and competition, shared interests and fundamental disagreements. It's all there.
So as we wrap up this deep dive here, what's the one thing you want our listener to kind of walk away with?
I think the most important thing is to recognize that this isn't just about some abstract geopolitical maneuvering.
Right.
This U.S. China relationship, it has real world consequences for all of us. I mean, it affects everything.
Yeah.
The global economy, technological innovation,
Yeah.
international security, even the environment. It's all connected.
That's a great point. Yeah, it's easy to get lost in the headlines and all the political rhetoric.
It is.
But we do need to remember that these are real issues impacting real people's lives every day.
Absolutely. So now that you've heard all the details of this meeting,
Mm-hmm.
the context surrounding it,
Yeah.
what do you think the future holds for the U.S. China relationship under the incoming Trump administration? It's a question worth really thinking about because the stakes, I mean, they are incredibly high.
They are. It's a lot to think about. We've explored the handshake symbolism. We delved into AI, fentanyl, even touched on the ripple effects of the conflict in Ukraine.
Yeah, and we've seen how these seemingly distant events, they're all interconnected,
They are.
shaping the global landscape in some really profound ways.
Absolutely. Well, hey, thanks for guiding us through this complex terrain.
My pleasure.
Until next time, everyone, stay curious, stay engaged, and keep diving deep.